So many years ago, I decided that my favorite saying from scripture were two simple words: I am. Who are you, Jesus? Are you a man? I am. Are you our Messiah? I am. Are you God? I am. I am. Such simple words. I am who I am. And throughout time, many people have taken this as evidence that Jesus is labeling himself as God because the Hebrew God Yahweh referred to himself as the great I am. But I understand this phrase a little bit differently. I take this to mean when Jesus said those words that he was refusing to let other people label him. In addition, he was refusing to place himself in a box by labeling himself. And if you really think about it, the religious and spiritual leaders throughout history who have made the most impact in the world and on humanity at large are the people who were able and willing to transcend the labels that other people were attempting to place on them. The Buddha was born in a castle. He was a prince. His father and his people had already labeled him as the future leader of their land. However, when he renounced all of his worldly possessions and went off to find his own path, he chose to define himself. Mahatma Gandhi was born into one of the higher caste systems in India. According to the labels of his birth, he was destined to live a very comfortable life. However, he chose to redefine himself. The same can be said for Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa was raised in a middle-class upbringing in Europe and yet made the most difference in the slums of India. And so today, as we talk about what it means to be renewing self, I want us to think a little bit about that I am statement. What does that I am statement mean to you? Who are we really? And do we like the I am that we find when we contemplate our true selves? Eckhart Tolle starts his book, The Power of Now, with the story about how one day he was struggling with all types of depression and he just was not living a life that was fulfilling or happy. And he was thinking about ending it. And he finally, something just popped into his head, a question popped into his head because he kept saying, I don't like myself. I just don't like myself. And this question popped into his head that said, who is the I who doesn't like myself right now? If there's an I not liking me, then who is the I? And that was the question that totally changed his life and threw him into his own spiritual path and his own journey, contemplating who is that I am. And so I want us just to take a little bit of time with that today as we think about who we are and what is the I am and what is that inner divinity in each of us. And I want to tell a little story that happened a few weeks ago. We have a person who is sometimes houseless, and then she gets a home, and sometimes she is struggling with addiction, and then she gets sober, and throughout the years we've kind of formed a friendship, and she comes in, and she's one of the few people who occasionally will come in and say, I need to talk to you, but she doesn't actually ask for anything except for me to sit down with her and actually pray with her. And so her tradition is a more Christian tradition with angels and that Christ language. And a few weeks ago, she asked if I would just sit with her and pray. And so I couldn't tell if she had been using drugs or not. I'm kind of naive that way, but we sat right there in the center of the sanctuary, and I looked at her and I said, I want you to remember who you are. I don't care who this person is right here. I don't care what you're telling yourself about who this person is or where she's been or what she's arguing with other people in the valley right now. I want you to remember who this person is, because you know that person exists. And she said, yes, I kind of had to keep focusing her to just let go of this personality or whatever it is that we've put on ourselves. And so we sat together and we said a prayer, and we just asked God to just come in and fill her up in her heart and remind her of who she is and what she is and who that eternal divine spark is outside of this human life and this human ego. And it felt nice. It felt beautiful. I asked if she felt like she could feel a difference, and she felt like she could. But then what happened was, as she was leaving, Maya just spontaneously said to her, you know what, would you like a book of meditation? And Maya somehow just had, Maya's our administrator for those of you who are new. She just had this book that she randomly pulled out, and she gave it to this woman. And this person started crying. And she said, this morning, I was so mad at God that I threw this exact meditation book out of my tent. She came here, she prayed with me. Maya, having no idea, handed her back the exact same book. I don't know what that means. Is that coincidence? I tend to think not. But it's just something to think about when we think about who are we and what really matters in life. And are we really truly alone? Or if we are willing and able to allow ourselves to be connected in some way, I don't totally understand it, but there was something that happened here, and there was some type of connection that happened with Maya, who was just in her office doing her work and randomly pulled up this book. And I think it's just, as we talk this month about renewal, renewing faith, renewing relationship, renewing self, and next week is renewing community. I invite us to just not limit who we think we are, because we, I believe, are more than what we give ourselves credit for many times. And we live in a world right now where everything is changing. Things change in the blink of an eye. 3 weeks ago, Ukraine was this beautiful, magnificent country. And now so many people have lost their lives, they've lost their homes, they've lost everything. And it was just almost literally overnight for people. And that is partly the story of life, that transition happens, change happens in January in Loveland with no warning. Huge gusts of wind swept down a power line, I believe, and hundreds of homes just went up in flames. Just like that, everything changed. And so we can think about who we are when everything changes overnight, just like that. Sometimes our values are reset. Sometimes the clutter in our life is just cleared away. Sometimes this rapid, sudden change allows us the opportunity for clarity, to get regrounded, recentered, to see what matters and what sustains us. And so in that respect, sudden and unexpected change can be a gift of immediate clarity because there is no time and there is no choice. The decision has been made, the change has happened, and we have to figure out who we are in the midst of that. And sometimes we can occasionally, for ourselves, without having to wait for a crisis to get recentered, what if we occasionally took the time to clear away that clutter, to get ourselves grounded and centered in our own way as our own spiritual practice outside of a major crisis? What if we take the time occasionally to contemplate that I am statement, that we ask ourselves that question, what is it in our lives that really matter? And so this week, as I said, it's spring break, and I'm excited to go outside and begin working in my yard. And Danny has asked if we can paint our hallway because apparently my beautiful bright colors are really ugly and we're going back to white. But it'll be fine, and it'll be fun, and it'll be an opportunity to spend time with Danny, because these little things matter until they don't matter, because it matters until it doesn't matter. My yard and what my yard looks like matters until we have a flood and it doesn't matter. The color of the paint matters until there's a fire, and what actually matters is that everybody is safe. And so we're constantly in this kind of dichotomy of the big picture and the small picture and the little things and the big things. And ultimately, it all matters until it doesn't matter. Over Christmas, we went to Fort Collins to spend time with my brother and his family for Christmas, and my sister-in-law, they have just remodeled their house, and it's beautiful with all of the little details that she took the time to think about. And it was the little details in her home that make the difference and make it this wonderful, vibrant, beautiful home with matching doorknobs and intentional nooks and crannies and perfectly measured to fit their prized possessions. And I went home and I thought, she inspires me with the little details of what her life is. She inspires me to pay attention to those details because they do make a difference. The little details in our lives, they make a difference and they matter. And she has created sacred space for her family. And I love that. And as is her personality, while we were there, she was so busy with the details of creating and preparing a beautiful meal for us and making sure that everything was perfect that we never got the time to sit down together so that I could have a real conversation with her. And that was what I craved. I craved the time with the people I craved that time with her when I could look at her and say, how are you doing, really? So it's a both and. In some ways, I want to be more like her. And in other ways, I think there are times when she wishes she could be more like me, because I tend to be big picture and sitting down and talking with people about what matters. And I have no idea usually what the person sitting across me is wearing or what my house looks like, or even if I think I said last week whether my children when they were little even showed up with shoes, right? So that's a little bit extreme, but I'm big picture, she's little detail, and one is not better than the other. It's just different. And so today, as we are contemplating what it means to renew self, I invite us to take a little bit of time this week to reflect on which parts of ourselves we want to honor and say, this is really beautiful and working for me, and I'm keeping this. And which part of ourselves are we ready to just say, I honor you and I bless you, and you have served your purpose, and I'm ready to breathe some new life into this part of me in a new way. It doesn't have to take a crisis to be renewed. Sometimes it could be as simple as sitting down across from somebody and saying, I'm ready to be a new person in a new way. And then occasionally we get a little gift from the universe saying, yeah, you're on the right path. I came across a Facebook post from Elizabeth Gilbert a few years ago, and I liked what she wrote. She wrote, you guys, I can't do it anymore. I can't attack myself. I can't insult myself. I can't respond to a compliment by offering up a list of my flaws. I just can't. It feels like a violation of the sacred. I don't have the heart for self-deprecation anymore. Somewhere along the way over the past few years, I've lost the dark talent for self-criticism and for tearing myself down. It now feels like a sacrilege. My mouth can't form those hateful words, and I can't bear it anymore to hear another human demean, degrade, or diminish themselves. It shocks my senses and hurts my heart. To witness a woman denying that she is beautiful is like watching someone set fire to an art museum. It's like watching an angel drink gasoline. It's like watching a phoenix rip off its wings. I just can't be around it anymore. It hurts too much. This is my official plea. I beg you to stop doing that. You are a magnificent creature. Start knowing it. Stop lying about yourself. I love you. Onward. Why don't we just stop doing that? We change. As human beings, we have to change. Our lives change, our bodies change, our spirits expand in new understanding. And it is beautiful and it is wonderful. And the key, I believe, is that we have to allow ourselves to change and to honor that transformation in the people we love. And every so often, I love to share one of my favorite stories from one of my favorite books, The Mutant Message Down Under. And it's about, well, the story isn't, but this little segment is about a little girl who was part of an Aborigine tribe, and they were going on a walkabout together. And in the middle of this desert, she found this beautiful flower in the middle of the desert, and she placed it around her neck for the day. And all of the people in the tribe commented on how beautiful she was. And she just soaked in the compliments and the beauty, and she was beautiful for that day. And at the end of the day, she replanted the flower and she moved on. Because it wasn't about holding on to the material possession, it was about the experience of expressing her beauty for a day, holding on to the memory and releasing the attachment of the physical object. Because the experience was now in her heart. And so maybe this is just the key, to not take things for granted, to be willing to express and internalize the beauty that we all are, and then be willing to release that which no longer serves us, and to love and cherish and value what we have while we have it, and then let it go when it is time to be released. And so I invite you today to just take a little bit of time this week to ask yourself that I am question. Who is the I and the I am? Have I yet found that divine spark deep within me? And am I ready and willing to do some of that intentional work so that we can be grounded, centered, and relaxed, entering into whoever we are in the process of becoming? This is my invitation for you this week. And as we contemplate that, I invite you to sing together with us. Come sing a song with me.
Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come dream a dream with me. Come dream a dream with me. Come dream a dream with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come walk in rain with me. Come walk in rain with me. Come walk in rain with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come share a rose with me. Come share a rose with me. Come share a rose with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. as you may. Blessed is the path you take. May love guide you on your